Hey guys, I am a glutton for punishment. Let me tell you why. I have been trying to make old-fashioned fudge successfully for many years. I think I managed it one time, and I haven't managed since then to do it. I have tried multiple times, but I haven't actually managed to get it done. So today, we're going to try again because I have some new tricks. I think I have all of our ingredients out. So what we need, it's very simple, except that it's not. It's very simple ingredients. It's all stuff that you probably have in your cupboard if you're a baker at all. It just needs cocoa powder, granulated sugar, milk, butter, vanilla, and then my first trick, which is corn syrup. So, if you've ever done caramel, you might have found that some of your recipes call for a little bit of corn syrup. And the reason for that is because it helps with making the sugar not crystallize once it has melted. And that's one of the big issues that you run into with old-fashioned fudge, is that the sugar, after it has all melted, if it gets like even a tiny little crystal of sugar in there or a myriad of other things, it can go all grainy on you. And so the corn syrup should help with that. And there are actually recipes that have corn syrup in them, which I had never found before. So that is going to be my first trick. The second one is you do need to use a candy thermometer. Well, you don't have to, but it's much more accurate to use one. The one that I used last year, I just made a bunch of mistakes. So this year, I discovered, so we live at almost 5,000 feet elevation, which means that water boils at a lower temperature, which means candy making or any baking of any kind, everything cooks just a little bit differently. But when you're doing something that requires a very specific temperature, you need to know what your thermometer is calibrated to. Hopefully it's calibrated to do what it's supposed to do. But the best way to test it is to boil water. So we are going to do that. This does not have to be anything fancy, and pardon the absolute mess of my stove. Clearly it needs to be cleaned. Not going to do that right now because I'm probably going to make a mess of it. So all we are going to do is, actually I'm not even going to put this in here until it has boiled. So we're going to get this up to boil, let it boil for 5 minutes, and then we will take the temperature. And I'll let you know what we do from there. 5 minutes it has been boiling. So let's see what we've got here. Don't want it to touch the bottom. .3. No. What? Okay, we're going to go with 205.3. Easy enough. So that puts us at 7 degrees lower than boiling. The temperature that we need the fudge to get up to is 234. And yes, I'm going to use a calculator because I'm going to be very accurate. So 234 minus 7 degrees is 227. So that is where we will want our fudge to get. Last year, I used one of these guys. This isn't the same one. And when I lived at sea level, I had done this test just to see if it was correct at 212, because I lived at sea level. It should have been at 212. And it wasn't. It was off by like 3 degrees, I think. I can't remember which direction, but it was definitely off. So then when I did the boil test with it, I took the 3 degrees, maybe it was 3 degrees. Yeah, I did something wrong where it ended up, I cooked it too hot every time I cooked it. I tried it, I think 2 times. That thermometer is now in the garbage, long ago in the garbage. The other problem, with these thermometers is that this little red line here is incredibly difficult to see when it is in a boiling pot of hot sugar and there's steam. And it's just difficult to see it in general. So that is also the issue. Thus, my husband got me this lovely digital one. But then I was reading today that when you do the boiling water test and you're at an elevation, it will take into account the wrongness of whatever your thermometer is, plus the elevation difference. And that's going to be your difference. I was trying to add them together, subtract them, whatever, and it just was not the right thing to do. So that's my other trick. It will take into account your elevation if you are at elevation. So you don't need to do that. All right. Now we're going to get our ingredients in here, which is 3 cups of sugar, I believe. Let me just check. Yes, 3 cups of sugar. I actually do have one other trick that we are going to talk about a little bit later. This pot I'm using is a little overkill. Not a little, it's a totally overkill. But it calls for a 3-quart pot, and none of my like normal saucepans are big enough. And you have to stop stirring it once it starts boiling. And that has been one of my other problems, is I've had to stir it because it was going to boil over if I didn't. So we are using a very large pot, much larger than we need. All right, 1/2 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. It says to sift it, but I'm not going to, because the granules in the sugar will sift it when I stir it around. So I'm not concerned. And if this comes back to bite me, you can say I told you so. We need some salt. Actually, like I said, I am going to stir this first. Get the cocoa powder all mixed in with the sugar. All right. And then we just need 2 tablespoons of our corn syrup. Just spraying it just helps the it slide out much easier. I should have turned this bottle upside down. That's okay. And that is it for this. We are just going to stir this together and cook it over medium heat until all of the sugar is dissolved. And then after that, well, this one says to stir occasionally, but every other recipe I've ever seen says not to stir it after the sugar has all dissolved. And then once all the sugar has dissolved, I'm actually going to take this little guy with some water and just brush down the edges of the pan, so to hopefully get all of the crystals in there before it starts to boil. All right, this started boiling. And there is still a little bit of sugar in there, not dissolved. You can kind of see it on the spoon here. But I think it's close enough. So, like I said, I'm just going to wet down the sides here. Make sure there's nothing on the edges. Oh, and I just spilled water everywhere. Oh my God. Okay. That's all right. It cleans up. All right. Thermometer is in. It is moving up quickly. Actually, we might need to take this off rather quickly. 227. Okay. It is slowed down at 217. Actually, no, it's still going up. This might go very quickly. So one of the myriad things that can go wrong with fudge is if it does get too hot, it'll get very crumbly. And it'll still taste fine, but it just won't be as nice to eat. And if you don't get it hot enough, it will never set. It'll be this gummy mess. So that is beyond the graininess issue that can happen. Clean up my water mess here. All right, while we are waiting for that, I am just going to get ready 3 tablespoons of butter. That will go in as soon as this gets up to temperature. And this is not quite room temperature, but not cold butter. 225. This is going fast. $226.8. All right, 227. I'll move it off the burner entirely. And then we are going to plop our butter in here. And we are not going to touch it. We will add our vanilla once it comes down to temperature. So now it is going to sit here probably about an hour because it needs to drop all the way to about 110 degrees. You should not touch it before it hits 110. Like you can mess with it after that, but you probably don't want to get it much lower because the next step is beating the life out of it. So you still want it warm enough to do that, but not so warm that it causes it to crystallize. So that will take a while to get from 227 degrees all the way down to 110. So I'll see you back when that happens. We are at 124.2. So my next trick is that we are going to try, except that I'm missing my beater. Okay. Yeah, clearly I don't plan things very well. All right. This might take a minute. Ah! My other trick is that instead of trying to beat this by hand with a wooden spoon, I did a bunch of research and a lot of people use their KitchenAid with the beater attachment. So we are going to try that and see how it goes. Because typically you have to beat this. Actually, I read a couple of or not reviews, people talking about it, and they're like, no, it's more like slapping it around and you can't stir it because it's too difficult to stir, which I concur. It is very much too difficult to stir for 10 minutes. So we are going to try this. Apparently it takes longer than beating it by hand, which is kind of odd. But I'm okay with that if I don't have to beat it by hand. Turn our sugar away. So we're going to prep our pan here. I learned a cool trick recently. Think of my spray really quick. That if you put your paper in, and then you cut the corners, they'll actually lay flat. Like this. It's the most amazing thing. I don't know why I have never thought of this before. But I love it and highly recommend it. See, so now there are no like weird crunchy corners. All right, I'm going to spray this as well. Just so we are all ready. Okay, somehow this went from 100 and I don't know, whatever it was when I last said it, to 107. So we need to get moving here. Let's see. You're going to pour this into here, and hopefully it actually pours. Okay. Looks like it should. And it is very sticky. All right. We also need to add the vanilla. But I'm going to get it mixing right now. So the goal with beating it, and bring this a little closer here, is to, what they call it, stretch out the sugar strands. I don't know what that means, but that's what I read. And we are trying to look for the glossiness to go away. So let me see if I can show you what it looks like right now. Yeah, you can kind of see it's pretty glossy right now. And I read another great blog post from somebody who apparently makes fudge a lot, and she uses her KitchenAid to beat it. And she gave a couple of really good tips. You're supposed to scrape down the sides a couple of times. And when you look at the beater, she gave a couple of just really good pointers for what the chocolate should look like kind of as it drips off of the beater. I will link this website. I'm not going to try and explain. She did it much better than I ever could. So she did say it took like 20 minutes. So we'll see. I'm going to let it beat here for a while, scrape the sides, let it beat, scrape the sides, see where we get. Sure smells good. Okay, I actually think we are really close. It's been about 15 minutes. And definitely, I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but the super shininess of it has gone away significantly. And they say it doesn't lose all of its shine, it just doesn't look glossy, which I would say this is pretty close. I don't know. I think we're really close. It's not quite being stringy yet, though, which that was one of the ones that she said is it'll start being stringy. Well, kind of. Maybe a little bit longer. Just a little bit. You can actually kind of see pretty well on here, maybe. See, this stuff in the back was the earlier, and this now is what it's looking like. So very glossy in the back and not nearly as glossy in the front. Oh, you know what? I think that's good. We're gonna stop it. All right. Wish me luck, you guys. Oh, I think this is it. This is it. Oh. It looks exactly right. Well, at the moment it does. That could change after it hardens, but let's get it in the pan, and we're gonna hope for the best. You can apparently overbeat fudge, which is why a lot of people don't recommend using an electric mixer. But I don't think I've ever been able to beat fudge enough with muscle. So I'm hoping that I did it right. Okay, we are going to find out shortly if this is right. It's not grainy, at least at the moment it's not. I don't know if that could change again. It tastes amazing. But honestly, even when it's been grainy or hard as a rock, it has still also tasted good. So it's not really an indication, unfortunately. But it will take several hours for this to cool enough to know if we have succeeded or not. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Moment of truth, guys. What do we think? Well, it's solid, so there's that. But let's cut into it and see if it's grainy or crumbly and hard. It feels like it's maybe. Let's cut into it. Okay. Oh. Well, it is not as hard as a rock. I actually think it might be a little soft, but it also does not look grainy. So let's see what we think. Oh my gosh. It is not grainy. It is not hard. It is a little bit soft, but it's holding its shape just fine. So it's not like it didn't set at all. So I needed to get it just a teeny tiny bit hotter than I did. But I think I finally cracked fudge. Oh my gosh. That's very exciting. And the flavor, like, you can't beat this. You cannot beat old-fashioned homemade fudge. So good. Okay. I'm going to make this probably one more time. David thinks he's going to go through all of this before the kids get here in like a week and a half. I don't think he will. It's a lot of fudge. But if he does, I will make this one more time before the kids get here, and I will try to do a little bit warmer than I did last time. But overall, I am super happy. All right. Christmas fudge. Done.